Good afternoon. Thank you for being at this panel. This is a discussion about theater journalism, how you can bring big audiences in theaters in Europe. And so here we are. The title of the panel is Extreme Engagement, because something we want to discuss, how you can engage with audiences with high quality journalism. So I'm Florence Martin-Kessler from Paris. Here is Jakob Moll from Denmark. Riikka, I don't know exactly how to say your last name.
It's Haikarainen.
Haikarainen from Finland, Helsinki. And Cristian Lupsa from Bucharest in Romania. So we didn't know each other when we all started individually journalism shows in our respective cities, but we were all inspired by mostly one guy called Doug McGray, who invented this format in California in the early 2010s. So thank you, Doug. I'm going to let Riikka talk about Black Box.
Thank you so much, Florence. It's great to be here. I'm going to tell you about our show in Helsinki, Finland. It's called The Black Box. And I'm going to tell you what we have learned along the way. It all started 4 years ago. I was in Los Angeles, California. I went to see Pop-Up Magazine, which is the show by Douglas McGray, and I was hugely impressed. There were journalists simply telling stories live on stage to live audience, and it was so powerful that I thought that this is a way to engage new audiences. I was working as a staff writer for Helsingin Sanomat, and when I went back home, I started to tell my colleagues that we have to try this out in Finland too. So we went to see the director of the Finnish National Theatre, and we suggested that our newspaper, Helsingin Sanomat, which is the leading daily newspaper, starts a live journalism show at the theatre. And this is how it looks like when the house is full. We premiered 3 years ago, and now we have had the main stage for 2 years. We have done this on the main stage of the National Theatre. The structure of the show is rather simple. There are always 8 to 10 journalists telling an unpublished true story to a live audience. During these 3 years, we've had 13 shows with unique content. We've presented over 120 stories, and we have had over 80 staff writers from Helsingin Sanomat on stage. Roughly 23,000 people have seen the show, and we get like 3 types of feedback from the audience, and that feedback is quite interesting. First of all, they tell us that it is, as I experienced it in Los Angeles, it is very powerful to listen to a story told live on stage. It is more powerful than reading a print article or watching a video. And secondly, they tell us that they became interested in topics that they were not interested before. And I think it's in our time and on this era that we are now living, it's really important to burst these bubbles, so people become interested in things that they were not interested. And third type of feedback that we get from these members of audience is that they really enjoyed the increasing transparency of journalism. When the journalist on stage tells a story, the journalist usually tells something about the process, reveals the process, and it adds to the transparency. We're profitable. We sell the tickets. Usually we've sold out all of the shows. The tickets cost 31 euros and 21 euros for students. 31 and 21 for students. And the stage, the venue, the main stage has seating for 700 people. And we have usually 5 to 7 performances of the show. So how does it actually look like? As I mentioned, the very important thing for us is to make it exclusive. So the content that we tell on the stage, it is not published before. In this particular story, my colleague Esa was telling what happened to the interviewee after this story was published, and it actually evolved into a love story between the interviewee and a reader. It was interesting. Engagement.
That's audience engagement.
We have the topics, the 8 to 10 stories on stage. The topics are really, they vary. They are from a wide range of themes. We have science, we have history, we have personal stories, lifestyle, we have arts, culture. We try to have music on stage in every show, because music kind of opens up people and attracts emotions. Here we had a choir of young people singing. We've also had a musician playing grand piano on the stage, while an arts and culture reporter tells about a musician or a composer. And then the visuals, we try to be innovative with the visuals. We try to make illustrations as interesting as possible. We use graphics and try to kind of make it as immersive as possible. Why do we do it? Why do we love to do this? Why have we been doing this for 3 years? I think for us as journalists, it is a really new experience to be so to connect with the audience in a live setting. It is really rewarding to even physically kind of feel what happens in the audience when you tell them a story. You can hear their laughs. You can even sometimes you can hear them being, so moved that they are almost in tears. It is quite new and quite unique. And then, of course, it means that we overcome our fears. A journalist is usually used to writing a story, just sitting in front of a laptop, and now we should do something which is on the stage. We present ourselves to you, to the audience. A journalist becomes really vulnerable, a human, and I think that actually increases transparency and authenticity, and even adds to trust, to trust between journalist and audience. Now we are actually taking a new step with this Black Box production. Last week we got a really interesting news. We have received funding for a research project where we look into the power and attraction of live journalism. We are gonna study Black Box, and hopefully this is an invitation to all of you. We would like to cooperate with other live journalism projects and really collect material from all similar projects, and we would like to really look into the power and attraction of live journalism. And then, as a next step, we would like to apply these lessons, because we think that the editing process is really interesting. We are all the time focusing on the audience. How do we engage the audience? How do we make a really powerful connection with the audience? And that is something that we could somehow apply in other forums and contents. So this is an invitation. Let's talk about these questions.
Thank you very much, Riikka. Just to make a little comment, you've heard words like immersion, transparency, trust, exclusivity. This is what we do, and we do it differently. Riikka does it with a daily news of record. Jakob, you will tell you, he has a pure player, digital media. You publish a print magazine that goes every 3 months, right? So, but what I wanted to say is that for journalism, we address all the interesting questions that are, that the industry faces, and this is a small way to experiment and to try things that is not very costly, and it is actually profitable often. And that's why we love it, because it makes us think a lot on how to do better journalism, address new audiences, and there's also things that work less well. Anyway, thank you very much. Cristian, I'd love to hear about what you do.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I will take you to the other end of Europe and to the show that we put on in Bucharest, Romania. And just to give you a bit of context, we come from so our show is born out of our magazine. In 2009, we started a small independent quarterly publication that focused on non-fiction storytelling. So that's our core mission. We want to tell the kinds of complicated narratives that are not really present, at least in our part of Europe. So storytelling has always been our DNA, and partly inspired by Pop-Up, partly inspired by The Moth, partly inspired by the live shows put together by Radio Lab and This American Life and other storytelling enterprises that we admire. We decided in 2013 to test. We did a small pilot, and this is what I recommend to all of you to do, especially if you're a small organization like ours. So we did a 150 people in a small cinema. We did a small test, and it went well. We did that test again in 2014, and then we realized that the kind of show we wanted to make and what it would take to produce, it would need more scale. So it took us about 2 more years to find the resources and figure things out. So the show, as you can see it right now, started in its current format at the beginning of 2017. And I won't spend a lot of time on some of the things Riikka said, because you will see there are a lot of overlaps. So I will just point out some things that are different in what we do. And what I want to point out is that we decided to make this show without knowing how much it would cost, how many people would come, what would happen. We just wanted to do it because we thought it fit our mission. And our mission, in this very highfalutin way, we want to use storytelling to transform our lives and our organizations and our communities and bring people closer together. And we thought, we're trying to do it with stories on the page, we're trying to do it with podcasts, but face-to-face and trying to convey emotion on stage, that's a powerful tool. Let's see if we can use it. So our show is called Door Live. Door is the name of our magazine. And the words right underneath it say, the magazine comes to life. That's sort of the slogan. This is where we are right now with the shows that we've done in the past 2 years. We also do it in the National Theatre in Bucharest. It's not where we started. We started with 150 people. This is the main hall of the National Theatre in Bucharest. It seats 950 people, I think. and this is from last summer. So we packed the main hall in July, which means we're doing something right. What is a bit different in what we do is that although we put nonfiction on stage, we don't do it just, we don't tell the same stories as the magazine, and the majority of the people on stage are not journalists. So we tell true stories, but we do it through other means, and I'll just take you quickly through them. So we always have 1 or 2 bands that play. So we try to match it with a theme. Our shows have a theme. We're putting one together in 2 weeks that is about education, and it's called Attempts, like attempts to change the educational system, and we're trying to pull stories out of that. So we have live music, we have dance, which is also, we try to put it to the theme. We have documentary theater. And what is fun about documentary theater, the first times we did it, we just looked for documentary theater that we could cut 7-10 minutes out of and put it on stage. For the past 2-3 shows, we've started writing documentary theater together with performers. That's a lot of fun for the journalists that get to do like scripts and then have actors play that is tremendous fun. We also have either journalists or others do essays or just tell a story on stage in a more conventional format. And then we always have 1 or 2 movie shorts. So what we try to mix all forms together. What is really important to us, and this might sound kind of devious, but we really want it to be a sort of a disorienting experience for the audience in a way. So we pack about 20 moments in a show, and we try to make it very fast-paced. So we thought, like, the structure of a magazine usually goes from the short pieces in the front to long pieces in the back. That's the traditional structure. So we try to mix them up, and we had 1 minute short, and then a 3-minute essay, and 5 minutes dance. And not only that, the show is sort of built as a narrative, so we know where you're supposed to feel tension, and we know where you're supposed to laugh and when you're supposed to cry. I'm not saying it works, we just try to put a lot of effort into trying to build a narrative curve for the show. And then to give people some release, we spend time drinking afterwards. So there's cocktails and networking. It looks like this or like this. And we figured out that in order to put something like this together, and I think this goes for these other guys too, we need quite a big team to do it. So this is the team. So I'll take you through some of the numbers and then some of the lessons. So we've grown from bringing 1,500 people to 3 shows in 2017 to 1,700 people to 3 shows. And this includes, we've started doing a smaller live show with one of the podcasts that we run. So that is a bit different. It is a very different format. And this year we're hoping to have about 2,000 people attend our 4 live events. So the show goes on for 2.5 hours, 20-25 acts, journalists, actors, musicians, poets, writers. And this might be useful for you to know. We are getting bolder as our team that can produce is getting bigger. So we did hire an events manager last year because we realized that we couldn't. Sorana, who's sitting back there, had to learn everything about production last year. So down to the kinds of cables that we need to use and how you talk to the lighting manager. And that's wonderful. It's just that Sorana's a better reporter and editor than she, and that's a better skill for her to use in the newsroom. So now we're trying to figure out what kind of technical needs and technical lessons we need to put this together. So we have an events manager, and then we have a team that puts together the content for every show. We do visuals, just as Riikka said, we produce the identity of the show. I will talk a little bit about money. I know, because you probably wonder about that. So we do have tickets, and they cost about 10 euros, 12 euros now. And we do have commercial sponsors for each. And the way we include them in the show, because in Eastern Europe, it's relationships with commercial partners are a little bit difficult. We've successfully Included them in the show while making it we created ad breaks. So it's like you're watching a movie and then there's an ad break, and then we try to create some content that is relevant to the theme with the sponsors. We have them do something on site that matches the theme. So on the right there's a team of high school students that did a demo with robots. We had sponsors give away books that our reporter has written, and then we have sponsors give drinks. And the last thing I'll point out, for us, engaging with the audience during finding some interactive elements during the show and after the show is becoming more and more important. So I'll only point out two things here. The picture on the upper left corner is something we did last summer. Everyone that went into the room got a card that it said, write your name and email address on it. And at the end of the show, put it in a box and take another one from there, which we were trying to set people up on blind dates. And the idea, and my colleague said, who the hell would do something like this? Like, technically nobody, unless those 2.5 hours you spend in a seat are such an emotional thrill ride that by the end you're like, this has helped, this has pushed my buttons, I want to do that. I cheated, I put like 7 cards in there, so not yet. But six of the people, I don't know if 7 people drew the cards, but I had drinks with 5 people, from a woman cop to a designer to a couple that are university professors to someone who does community organizing. So that tells you a bit about the interesting makeup of our audience. And then we have photo booths. People love to take pictures of themselves, and we do all sorts of stuff. So here's some quick lessons that we can expand on in the Q&A. We do it to amplify the emotional impact of stories. We put other people on stage but the journalists, because it's so great to put the people we sometimes feature in the stories on stage. It sometimes subverts the power dynamics. So we closed the show last summer with a group of kids that do theater in a very poor neighborhood outside of Bucharest, and they usually featured in like, oh, these poor kids, they still get a chance to do theater and music. And when you put them on stage at the National Theater and they're a little bit above the audience, me as an editor, I was very thrilled with that. So we try to subvert some power dynamics. The staff gets that creative training Riikka was talking about. It deepens connection with the audience. It's terribly time-consuming, stressful, and it has a low financial return. It is profitable, but when you're as small as we are, profitable can mean 2,000 euros, which is great, but you know, we couldn't do just this. This is on top of everything else we do. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. As you see, it's also a place where you can... oops, I have to do this little unplugging. This is a place where we all have been very creative. It's a place of freedom where you can experiment with formats. You know, we did shadow puppeting theater. How cool is that, you know? So I'm just going to go through live. So this is the post, the drinking party, very important. So I'm going to go quickly because we all feel these giant, beautiful theaters. So this is the venue, 1,800 people. This is in Arles, in the Antique Theater, 2,000 people. The picture is a bit off, but so it's in the warm night. You can come. We're going to do it in July 6th for the closing of a photography festival. So quickly, we do the same as this guy, I guess. We do it, we've done it in 16 cities now in Europe. What is different for us, I don't know if we talked about it, we don't announce the program in advance. So people, as if they're buying a magazine, we like the promise where you're buying something, you don't know what's in it. So this is a surprise, and we like the serendipity also. And people love to be surprised. And we don't record anything, so it's just one time only. So that's the idea. You have to be there. We mostly have journalists and authors, people who are professional storytellers, or at least whose job is to have a certain distance with the facts. Sometimes we do have real people, I don't know how you say that. And like we had the Prime Minister of France, Edouard Philippe, so that was a bit of a coup, and people were really enchanted to see him, and they didn't think he was a real Prime Minister. And he was really happy to do it because it was before the Gilets jaunes, so he had a higher popularity. And he told a story that he had never told any political journalist, so everybody thought we were really lucky to have him say that. Okay, what else? So I've been trying to, we think of ourselves as a magazine, so we try to have mostly reported stories, but we do a bit of opinion. And we do have also a bit of advertising on stage, which is fun to do. We try to think, those two women are the data journalists from Le Monde. We really want to go inside what is a story. So we're trying really to innovate and think. They told a story about the color red. It was not an expose about the maps they do. It was about, it was a very trippy story, and they made everybody cry because the red, they were talking about this red, which is the red they use for the attacks in Paris, for the migrant who die, and it was kind of very interesting. This is a smaller venue. We do music. This is we try to be cross-pollinating formats. This guy he's a cartoonist, but what he really wanted to do was to invent a song. So that's what he did, and we put together a little video. So stories that are, this is an interesting story that couldn't be published in the paper because she had to protect the source. But it was a space that she decided to do it on stage for us. It was the biggest story of her career, and she decided not to publish it. So it was very moving. Sometimes she's an historian, so we've done a lot of, we had like maybe 30 top-notch historians. For them to do 5-minute stories that are more intimate is fun. Le Premier Ministre. What works? I think we said that a bit already. It's a great experience for our kind of baseline when we meet with possible authors is tell a story that no one else can tell, because you had an incredible access, because it's you and you've been thinking about, Game of Thrones for like 15 years. So this is it. Or where you have. So we too do audience engagement. People come to Live Magazine with their dates and they kiss before and after show. No, but what I'm saying is that people always think we're like TED Talks, and I'm sure same for you guys. This is not a conference. You don't come here to learn something. You come here to have fun. It's entertaining, but at the same time, it makes you think. And the stories, there is no trace, but you don't forget them. They are so people really, and yeah, different people. Very stressful for the journalist. And behind were distributed, Sébastien and I, the cognac Hennessy bottles that we that we offer each of the speakers. We talked about that, I guess. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm sorry for those who've come previously, because the third time with Jakob that we're explaining this in Perugia. I'm going to talk a bit about our business model, which is a bit specific. And one last thing, we do a lot of media literacy. It works very well with the youth, starting age 13. We have 10% of the public. We bring it inner city kids, mostly, with their teachers. And we have a program before and after. It's very small. I mean, I think we touched, 1,000 kids last year. But, I mean, that's what we can do. We have now, we have a subsidy from the French government to do that. This is the the media literacy. So school dropouts, we do bring a lot of vocational high school kids who are far from journalism, but because they don't know, they're going to be interested in it. And the journalists also don't have so many outlets to go in the classrooms and to reach out. We've been very concerned, obviously, with the lack of trust and defiance, so this is something they enjoy. And we pay the journalists to go also into the classroom. We've worked, so the different thing, so I come from documentary myself. I've started a company, and we work with publishers, with different publishers. Le Monde, Les Echos, Bayard, which is like, we do kids show starting age 7 to 12. We've worked with the Financial Times. Our show is next Tuesday in London. So obviously that's very different. So we give our expertise to those publishers. So we had 30,000 spectators. We play the show. So we try to have the biggest venue, which is in Paris, 2,000 people. And now we do the same show twice, which is new. We started this last year, and you guys do it 6 or 7 times. And we don't advertise at all. We just do one emailing, and we fill the house. So we are pretty lucky to have this good base of people coming. So the blue in the bottom is the number of spectators in Paris. Then outside of Paris, then Belgium. We have like a franchise with a Belgian company who does it with us and for us. And we do a few of private shows for brands or for cultural institutions. We've done it with recently, we did it with La RATP, which is the French metro system in Paris, and we did a show on the theme of transport, which is actually called La Mobilité. Voilà. So this was your big public event last year. Pardon. Tac. Revenues, looking good. I'm talking to all the publishers here. Okay, so this is how it breaks up. So the blue are the ticket sales. When we do it with a newspaper, often they pay us, but also they pre-buy a lot of tickets because they want to even, invite people. Then we do have public and non-profit funding, a little bit. It's been going a bit down. And we have a bit of brand partnership. We do that with, in that I include the shows we do for the brand upon invitation. We did it also for, who we did it with? The Transport Authority. Anyway, like for soon work, Hennessy, the cognacs. Voilà. What else? So we had a lot of nice... it's finished? Ah oui, it's finished. Okay. Now, I just want also to say something. I started this because I'd never met Doug. No, I met Douglas in America because here we both went to the Harvard Niven Fellowship. I see you, and it gave me strength as a filmmaker to start a business. And so yeah, Jakob.
So I could be saying a lot of the same things, and I will be saying some of them. But I think the most mind-blowing fact for me is that we've very different, coming from very different places and different places in Europe, have basically come to the same conclusions concerning how this works. And it reminds me of some of like the scientific breakthroughs in history. I usually, yeah, that you agree. Thanks. No, but in usually people will come up with good ideas independently of each other. Like it sort of like grows up from the ground. And I think it's really incredible for me that we have on our own have figured out some of the same things that work. And I think it speaks to that, there is something here that's really important. But I will try to talk about like what does this mean? You know, what can we do with this powerful format that we've found, and how does it tie into one of the big themes of this year, the membership idea, because that's where I come from Zetland, and just like one very concrete note, one of the most important lessons of live journalism is, you know, it can never feel like a convention. And it must never look like a PowerPoint presentation. But this is a convention, so that sucks for you, because here's a PowerPoint presentation. And it looks like shit. So like what I wanted to talk about is just like explain how live journalism plays into our operation. And we are a digital newspaper started in 2016. As a daily publication with private investor backing, and we're a membership driven organization, and the larger mission is basically to help democracy, you can say, to have a better public conversation in a time where it's threatened by social media and accelerated news cycle and all these things. And I think one of our biggest steps or findings with Zetland as a publisher has been a great success we've had with audio. We thought we were a print or a reading text-based newspaper, and it turned out we were really supposed to be an audio operation. But that's a different panel. But it actually ties a little bit into my point at the end. Also, we have turned out to be a platform company in that we just recently succeeded in selling this thing we built to serve our members. And I'll get to live journalism in a little while, because it turned out that that could be very important for our business. Selling what we built and selling the actual code. And so we just did that recently, and that's been very important for us. And then there's the third part of our business, which is live journalism. And we were also inspired by Pop-Up Magazine. Luckily, we actually never saw the live magazine, and I think that actually it helped us find our own formats. And we were the first. But I guess it doesn't matter where you begin; you're going to end up at the National Theatre. So this is it seats 1,400, so still less than 2,000. But it's and we've also been lucky enough to sell it out several times. And then since we've explored all sorts of thinking around how to do live journalism. That was a very, very big indoor show. We've done very large outdoor shows. We've done a national tour. We've done like partnership shows. We've done shows that were only one single story told in 15 different segments. We've done shows with a symphony orchestra and with a jazz band and with a heavy metal guitarist and with a band playing Plants. And they actually did an album later on. So you can do that with Plants and live journalism. So many of the same experiences, but in the end, this is like the business of Zetland. We're a publisher, we are a digital platform company, and we do live journalism. And in terms of business model, I must say, it's almost been said that it's not going to be a great source of revenue, and not coming from a publisher standpoint. And I think the best bet, if you want to make live journalism profitable, is to make that your core business. I think it's very hard to do to make a great profit on live journalism if it's just side business. Because what Live Magazine is doing in France is to have a dedicated operation with freelance journalists and very agility towards doing partnerships, and I think that can be a great business. But I think it's hard for if you run a publishing business on the side. But at the same time, it's this incredible way to continue to build relationships with the audiences. So what we've decided to do after all these shows is actually to take a break from the very large shows and then sort of see if we can reduce the distance even more, because there's the most beautiful thing about live journalism is actually to have to have your community, your members or subscribers or audience have this very strong emotional connection to your reporters and writers in newsroom who's performing on stage. And this is very, very different from the experience of journalism and from these cynical times we live in. And to me, it's that this is like this at the core of what live journalism can do is like this. It's a battleground against cynicism, and that's very, very important. That's a very important part of what Zetland is trying to achieve. So in this phase right now, we're actually scaling down away from the national theaters. These pictures are from our birthday just a few weeks ago. And it's in the actual newsroom from where we work, but all the people are members that we invited to celebrate our birthday with us. And I think we should see every meeting with our audience as an opportunity to, of course, tell stories and blow people's minds, but also as an opportunity to get really close, just like you talked about the the after party. So in this case, the stage is only about this high, and Philip, our political reporter, is telling a story about Brexit. But it's I think something happens when you reduce the distance to zero, and then two other points, because you can actually also use live journalism as like a blueprint for storytelling in other formats. This is from our latest National Theatre show with one of the best stories was Anders, one of our great writers. And we just on the day of the show we got the idea of let's try to record his story like to a camera. And it turned out that for one thing it's much more powerful than trying to record like a stage show. It's actually quite a terrible format because you're watching somebody else experiencing something. This really works, and it's a way to scale this personal connection and use it online. And then on the other way around, you can actually we did something at the birthday that I just want to show you. These are just like raw footages, because I got on the box and I said to our members, we've just built a little studio for video, and could you please help us? Could you join us in the studio, because we want to show the world and the Danish population that we are an audio company. So so we had some of the members that said they would like to use 20 minutes, and we just filmed them reacting to our stories. And we haven't quite figured out what to do with it. We're going to use it to on social media and do something with it. But they're actual members of Zetland listening to actual Zetland stories. And it was just to say, this is something that grows out of making this personal connection on this meeting, and showing a different side of ourselves as media companies. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Jakob. So we just have 5 minutes. I would like to open the questions to the floor.
Thank you. How do you know which subjects are right for stage, for performing on stage, and which subjects are not?
Actually, I don't really care at all about the subjects. I'm speaking for myself. It has to be mind-blowing, unforgettable, and we more, as Cristian was saying, we just kind of do a mix-up of emotions. People like to cry, we give them that. People like to laugh, we give them that. And then we know, and we've acquired, I guess, expertise. We have produced 450 stories.
We had, last week we had a full house of 9 graders, 15-year-old students. We had invited them to the show. And we asked them to fill in a questionnaire, a survey after the show, and those 700 15-year-old students, the most liked topic was European Union, wow. and also a story about Siberia. It is about the way you tell the story, and it is about creating the connection, choosing the angle to really give a new some kind of a new perspective to the topic. So anything can work, really anything.
Yes, I have two questions. One of you told about cooperation with newspapers and corporations. What is the perception of your audience when you tell them your show has been powered by other newspapers? Is that important to them? And the second question is to you. This was really interesting about the reaction videos to the audios of people. When I watch it on YouTube or wherever you publish it, can I hear also the story? How does that really work?
That was the second question.
C'est pour toi.
Okay. This is actually just to showcase. This is basically, we will probably use it for marketing, because usually we publish within our own platform where you could listen to the stories in the app. So this is just looking at it from the outside. I don't know if that answers the question. You can't find our stories on YouTube.
Can or can't?
You can't. No.
Oh, you're radical, ça va. Quickly, when we did a show with, I'll take the example. We did a show with Les Echos, which is the French financial newspaper. Pretty right business address people from a business community. We had our regulars coming. They didn't really mind. They trusted the quality. And for Les Echos, it was they could reach out to new people. And they're happy. They don't really care. With the Financial Times is a different deal. Their brand is bigger than my brand. The show is called, after many writing of contracts, FT on Stage by Live Magazine. So different sizes of fonts also. So the idea for them is to do an experiment at the Barbican, which is a prime London venue. It's very exciting for the newsroom. Something we didn't say is that when you do that with newsroom or with communities or with kids, and we also do a lot of workshops, it's very exciting for the newsroom. And even the Financial Times, they were not sure, the different, they have their big stars, and in the end, it's always new, and those are people who do a lot of panels. It's different. You have to put your heart, you have to take a risk. So I think I answered your question.
How important is it that the performer is also a reporter that did the research? Because not every good reporter or writer for a newspaper is a good performer on stage.
Okay. Oh. I think we found throughout the years, and I don't know if you have the same experience, that most people that are good storytellers in writing or in any other format will actually be able to learn to do oral storytelling. So it's a question of training and editing, and I think we have to remember that doing live journalism is basically journalism, just using by different means. And one of the things, one of the important things, is to be very serious with the editing process and designing. What things do you want? How do you want to present the story? What tools do you want to use? And we found with practice and editing and instructing and theater work, most people can tell stories. Yeah.
Mm. We have also a public speaking coach in the production team, but her role is to kind of convince people that you're okay. You're I mean, everybody is interesting as a speaker when they speak their truth and their own passion. If they train well, if they rehearse really, really hard, this requires training, as Jakob said. We do 4 rehearsals, and in addition to that, every speaker tries to learn the story by heart. And so it's not like chit-chatting, small talk. It's very scripted, very strictly edited content.
And the promise, it's not eloquence. It's not about eloquence. It's not about It's about being true, and even if if often people shake or are it's very stressful to have this huge. So we're not throwing them like that, but even if it's a bit imperfect, it doesn't matter at all. People are very happy to see them, and for them it's thrilling. They want to kill. They always. We had a collection of text messages. What can I tell you, Florence? I am not doing this tomorrow. My cat died, or they invite, and I say yes. Even with the Financial Times, saying I can't do this, Brexit. I'm like, what?
I just want to add one thing to this. If you get into this, if you get into doing live shows, this should be a feature, not a bug. I think the vulnerability of performers who don't do this as trained professionals is probably half of the of why it works the way it does. So if you do it, this is the least you should worry about, how good people will be on stage. Yeah.
One last question. Two last questions. One. Sorry.
Thank you. What advice do you have for someone who is new to documentary theater? How can you start learning how to write it and how to set up a show?
It's a giant question, so we'll answer it after. So we can have another one, or that's finished? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.